I mean, sort of building on that idea of leadership, is there that Four Musketeers mentality? Is that, you know, all for one, one for all? Is that really effective in a band environment, or is that naive?
I mean, every band's so different, and I don't know if it's the environment I set up or I just happen to get to them, but I'm in all democracies. You know, bass player dude that no one really knows is just as important as singer dude in most of my scenarios. And it's everything's an ebb and flow. Like sometime like this is my point man, and then it kind of phased out, and now this is my point man, and now these two guys want to be on it for merch only, and these guys only want to talk money and only talk to me about recording. So it's just an ebb and flow. And generally, and I think Tim, from the band's point of view, will probably agree that like the whole group has to be at least somewhat on the same page. If it's some weird scenario where it's like we're 6 members of Underoath and we put it to a vote and it's 4-2 and we win, these 4 win, these 2 are pissed. Like there's only for a t-shirt design, yeah, maybe to discuss like doing a European festival run for 6 weeks. Like you have 2 or 1/3 of your machine pissed. It's not good. So
yeah.
Go ahead, Timmy.
Oh no, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done, but I agree with you, and you're saying a lot of good points. It's like, you know, even as a manager, like, you know, like Biggie said, there's label, there's lawyer, there's agent, there's all these people, there's publishing companies, and then he's this, you know, bottleneck, so to speak, that can filter everything and go, you can't talk to this dude in the band like this, but I'll take that information and talk to him in his love language, so to speak. I know how to explain this directly, but also effectively. And then if you only have one point person in a band, you have all this to a manager, and then you have another gasket, and it's just the one guy in the band. And then you have these 5 other guys down here that aren't communicating, aren't getting communication funneled to them. And as long as like boss guy, lead singer, or whatever signs off, it's done and it's executed. And that's actually not how Underoath works. Like we're like Biggie's band's like a democracy. And there are some people that weigh in heavier on their expertise. Like if it's financial, our guitar player, James, is a legal accountant. So, I mean, he's the guy that we go to for like, what should we do about this budget if we have a question from a business manager? If it's creative, like there's 3 of us that are the creatives. And, you know, if it's 7 weeks in a Europe tour to break even or lose money, but we have one good slot in a festival and it's all for this one look, that's all 6. And it's not a 5-1 vote like, sorry, bud, we're dragging you to Europe for 2 months because we got a headlining slot on a B stage, but we're playing with Limp Bizkit somewhere in Sweden, and the rest of it's a complete disaster. There has to be levels. And I think I would argue personally, like for longevity's sake, you know, we have a lot of brilliant people here in different fields. Like the longer you're with a person, like I think the longer Biggie's with ETID, the longer ETID will succeed. The longer Tim Bohr's booking Clutch, the longer Clutch will succeed. And so like, it's this thing where once you have your team outside of your band, they can then manage things like label changes and agent changes or publishing deal changes because they're almost fused to you. And so I think it's really important to not only pick your band members correctly and then know when you didn't and do what you can to either remedy that or pivot, but then also pick your admin team very, very carefully, because ideally they should be married to you for the life of your band. And, you know, we've only had 2 labels in our lives. We've had 3 agents in 20 years, which is, you know, probably more than most bands. We've had 1 manager. So by and large, we have a long streak of loyalty that lasts half a decade, at least most times our whole career, if it makes sense. We've had the same lawyer. So it's like, now those people know how we operate, and it just saves time and money, and it's efficient. And it's like, I know Tim, he'll never go for that. I'm not going to call a 5-hour band meeting over something that I know is not even in his wheelhouse because that's his kid's birthday and he never misses his kid's birthday. Those types of things actually matter long-term. And being heard as a band member from people like you guys, the manager, the agent, the label, that makes me go, if they're bringing something, it's already filtered through our preference checklist. And these are opportunities that make sense within the framework in which we operate currently. Not 10 years ago, not 20 years ago, not this is what my 5 other bands that are making more money than you do, so you should do this. It's a custom tailored thing to every single member's needs. And then as a band, we decide where we bend and where certain people have to take a hard stance. And then it's manager's job and label's job and agent's job to work within the ecosystem that we create so that we can always do this year over year. Rather than having 5 great years and kill ourselves, let's make millions of dollars over decades rather than having one great $1 million year and scrunch 3 good years into one because we were on the grind and then burn out. And I think that's really important for longevity.
By the way, these are really, really great points that these guys are making as well. Because a couple things. First of all, is you do need to have the team around you, and the more the team's around, I think the better it is. All of our bands that we've had for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it's the same thing, same manager, same label, same lawyer for the most part there, and that breeds a lot of success because everybody knows how everybody works. I also think it's really important to know that everybody in the band has to be on board as well, because like Biggie said, like you don't want to have 4 guys say we're going to Europe, and the other 2 like, oh, we don't want to go, and that's terrible. But I will say one other weird thing about that is that we have a couple of bands that we've had for a very, 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 very long time, who are run by either 1 or 2 guys in that band, and they make all the decisions. And luckily enough, the other 3 guys go along with them. I don't know that that's the healthiest way to do it, but these bands have been pretty successful doing it. But ultimately, everybody does get on the same page. I do agree with what Tim and Biggie say, is that you want to have all 5 guys on the same page and really be into it, because that's, or 6 guys, or however many there are, that makes it work. And one other point I want to make too, that I think kind of was intimated there, I think this is really, really important, is that the label, the manager, the agents, the lawyers, we all work for the bands. I think a lot of times bands think that they work for us, especially label people. They work for us. Like, no, we work for you. Like, we're here for you. The band is the driving force here. We're basically your employees, not the other way around. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that. And that's, I think, a super important point. And I say that to bands a lot, and they go, really? I go, yeah, we're working for you. It's not the other way around.
I know it's a weird, it's pretty rare that you pay somebody to tell you what to do. So it becomes that weird thing where well, he tells us what to do, but then we pay him, and it's just yeah, I'm straight. I mean, not kind of, I 100% work for bands. That's it. There's no 2 ways about it. If they fire me, that's it. I don't have it can't, I can quit or whatever, but it's a weird point for, I think, most people to wrap their heads around when you really think about it, again, in terms of that business analogy, they're the boss. And I might be CFO or whatever fancy term, but they 100% call all the shots, and I'm here to guide them with the help of my team of labels, booking agents, helpful band members, lawyers, everything else. But it is a funny point that I think a lot of bands forget, and they're just oh, our manager made us do this thing. It's don't do it then. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and there's also the idea of, a lot of bands want a manager that's literally just an executive assistant. I want merch designs. Send an email. Okay, we're going to get merch designs. And I think there's an axis point where it goes from whatever I want this person does, and I pay them for a service to make my load lighter, to where their relationships and their experience push back and get to a spot where our manager, I like to think that we pay our manager and our agent this much money all of the time to see white space and to see opportunities that we don't. And then to also push when they're I understand you don't want to do this, but I'm seeing it and you're not seeing it, and you have to take a closer look. And like Biggie said, if we don't want to do anything in Underoath, it doesn't matter if the label or the manager or the agent or the lawyer is guys, you have to do it. It's no, we actually don't. But there's also that long-term trust where instead of just being a do-boy and a facilitator for all of my vision as an artist, I want you to be a facilitator for what we need that we can't do, but also push back on us when you see holes in a ship because we're lost in our own sauce, as well as seeing new opportunities and going, this doesn't make sense, but I need you to give me at least a week and a half of trial run so that you can see what I see, and then let's decide. And a manager that can intellectually and very carefully and emotionally sensitively push a band and not demand things, but just go, I need to lead you to the water. And if you don't want to drink then, that's fine, but you're not even seeing what I'm seeing. And I think that's worth the money. That's like, we would have never been on MTV if our manager didn't tell us, you have to go to dinner on your day off and do this and that. And it's like, we didn't want to do it, but he said, no, you have to go. You don't have to sign anything, but at least take the meeting. And then all of a sudden, this whole new revenue stream or new opportunity comes out. And I think with labels and agents and managers, like, your jobs are, yes, potentially to serve us or help us, and you work for us, quote unquote, but we sign to you, or we're managed by you or booked by you because we trust what you know that we don't, and we want to hear back from you as well. And as long as a band's not taking a hard stance on, I'm the boss, I'm the singer, I'm the whatever, and a manager's not going, I managed Nine Inch Nails 25 years ago, so you do everything I say. Like, those are the polar, extremes. But the real rub where the magic happens is like that kinetic energy right in between, where it's like, I am the boss, and yeah, you're paying me 6 figures a year to tell you when you're being an idiot, and then you respect that. And that's like a beautiful collaboration of like, we're all going the same way. We just see different opportunities in white space because we all live different lives. You're on one coast, I'm on another. You're in London, I'm in New York. It doesn't matter that you don't see it, but you have to at least allow the trust that we have to let you try it. And then let's decide.
Tim,
I think that's really important.
Before I move on from you, you've opened up like so many cans of worms. You can't.
Yeah,
see it
sorry, I might have gotten off topic.
I know, no. Every can is great. Every worm is good. But first of all, like you mentioned love languages earlier, and that was like a sheet worth of questions that I had. But I never believed that anybody on this call would be interested in that book. But can you talk about like how to communicate both inside the band and with the team that you've surrounded yourself with in order to preserve longevity?
I mean, I think like Biggie said, with like how bands work on a management side, it's like every band's different, every band member's different, and even every band member's different every year based on stresses. So it's a revolving thing. So if you think you've nailed a target, don't like close the book and put it on the shelf. Like, that story will perpetually write itself for the rest of your lives as band members. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, there's people in our band that I could be direct with. There's people in our band that I can be really crass with. Like, yo, you fucked up last night. And someone goes, yeah, you're right. And someone goes, you were a pile of whatever last night. I'm like, totally. And then there's someone else that you have to be very delicate. And it's 10 ounces of sugar and 1 ounce of salt. And it's a longer process, but if you go in all salt and direct, based on how your personality perceives information, you just damage and push them away. So it's like, everyone's like that. And our manager has learned all of us as well. So when I see a text, personally, I know what he's saying, but I see how he's packaging it, because he has to wrap the package to all 6 of us. And he's pinpointing all of our communication skills or our lack of communication skills. And like that, I think that's a hand off to Biggie, because I mean, I know half the bands he manages and they're all different. And I think he could speak to that instead of me from the band side projecting what I think managers deal with. But they're godsends. It's insane. It's so tough.
We are doing the Lord's work, so thank you. I do think he nailed a lot of things on the head there. And a lot of what it sounds like, like, man, how do you know, like, who's the salty one, who's the sweet one? It's like, it's just time. And that's, as we're talking about longevity, you learn exactly who needs what and how to wrap things. And sometimes it takes a side text, like preface, like, I'm going to say this thing that I know you probably don't like, but this is my thoughts behind it, before I just throw it to the group in an email or a text and it explodes, just learning that sometimes sneaky navigation through things it's all just from time, and who's who. And like I said, it evolves. Sometimes it's this guy, and sometimes now it's this guy. It changes based on a lot of stuff. But I just think when the band gets older, it's just very interesting how you have to word things and how you have to preface things, and how, like, I use the I think Brad Pitt, or no, George Clooney used to say, like, one for me, one for them. Like, I'll do like this whack love story, and then I'll do something like cool and artsy, whatever. That was his thing. And I use that with my bands all the time. It's like, hey, one for you, one for them. If it's something they don't like, you know, try to like explain the balance of things when necessary. And some bands don't need that. Some bands, it's rare, but some bands just like, yes sir, no sir. Tell me where to be. I trust you. I don't want to think about it. Tell me where to be and when. And on one hand, it's like, dude, this is so great. And on the other hand, it's like, well, shit, now like it's all on me. Like, but if the merch spread shows up and it's terrible, I can't even blame someone else secretly. You know what I mean? But vast majority, you know, it's a lot of group effort and learning how to navigate, just like any relationship. You know, I don't know who's married or not. You know exactly when and when not to say certain things. Same thing with the band member, except there's 5 of them, and there's sometimes 6. Poor Randy has to deal with 6 of these idiots. But you know, it's all time, and I think going back to the whole longevity thing, it just gets easier with time. You know, at first it might just be this. It's always right when you get a band, and it seems like, why did I get another band? It's just this constant influx of questions and got to do and switch this and this is messed up. But then it all chills out, and then it gets back to normalcy where like most of the time, especially with older bands, they're not thinking about the band all day, every day like they used to. You know, they don't want to. God, like at one point I know Underoath was Tim's everything, living, breathing, everything. And now it's up there as a high priority, but I know it's not, you know, the only thing anymore. And that just changes with time. And so the whole deal with longevity, I think it's, you know, like Bruce Lee, just being like water. Sometimes we're hard and crushing. Other times we're just flowing through. And it depends on where you are. The band as a career, not even like their whole career. Like right now, as Underoath is just this river. It's just, it could be based on the week of their album drop or the months of their album drop. So they come and go and you know, bob and weave and ebb and flow, you know, and that's, I think the smart bands and smart managers know when to do that. Like if I was just injecting myself all day, every day, like bands would probably be like, dude, relax. Like it's a pandemic. You can't do anything. How many merch designs do you want to get up right now? You know? So it's really,
and every band is different too. You know, some like Tim said, every band member is different. Every band you deal with is different too. And we find, you know, some bands you approach a certain way, some bands you approach a different way. You know, we have bands that don't have managers. We also have bands that didn't have managers for many, many, many years, and we finally convinced them to get managers. It's so different. And the one thing I've learned in doing this for so long is there's so many different personalities and different ways you have to deal with people. And like Tim said, you know, some you deal with sugar, some you deal with the other way. It's reading psychology books. It's very helpful for dealing with all this stuff. But yeah, everything's different. But I think the one commonality though that bands who have a lot of longevity have is they're all, in addition to obviously being incredible musicians, they're all very smart.